Connectors show. I'm the Connector and I will be your host today. The topic of today's episode is Syria, will it start the World War III? You're welcome to draw your own conclusions. I will just give you my arguments and how I see things. If I insult anybody on any ground, please understand, it wasn't on purpose, so I apologize in advance. I will first say this. The world works in a way that big powers agree to divide the whole world into spheres of influence. So, every big power has its own part of the world in which it can do anything it wants, even carry out invasions, while other big powers will not resist that, since not resisting to invasions of other powers is a part of the deal between big powers. So, we could simplify and say that the whole world is just one big cake, where every big power gets a piece. That's it. The thing which is extremely important and to remember is that only big powers get their pieces of the cake. On the other side, small powers get the crumbs left after the meal and are supposed to be grateful for them. No wonder why they say that only big powers can have independent policy. This means that they can do whatever they want in their part of the world without being resisted from other big powers, while small powers in that part of the world are just helpless pawns who are supposed to move the way the big power wants. All small powers are some big power's pawns. On the paper, all countries are independent and pursue their own national policies. In reality, that is just an illusion. In reality, small powers carry out some big powers' policies. If we apply this logic on Syria, on the surface, it appears that what I've said just doesn't make any sense. The problem is that there are two big powers and not one big power in Syria. Those two powers are USA and Russia, who have been indirectly fighting each other for years in Syria, and nobody knows what is going to happen. The problem is that even though the world gets divided by big powers, it is always possible that sometimes one big power crosses the fence and gets into the part of another big power and immediately triggers the conflict. When USA invaded Iraq, Afghanistan and Libya, Russia did not resist, so USA could do whatever it wanted in that part of the world. So, if we apply the logic I explained, obviously, Iraq, Afghanistan and Libya were countries in American sphere of influence. However, when USA entered Syria by supporting the forces who were fighting against the government, the Russians responded by sending their military forces. Logical conclusion why the conflict started is that Syria was actually a state in Russian sphere of influence and the USA crossed the fence. Extremely important fact is that Russians had military bases in Syria before the war. The fact is that Syria is the only Middle East country in which Russia has military bases. So, I'm raising the question, would Russia build military bases in countries located in American sphere of influence? I don't think so. It seems that when one big power wants to mark some country as its own territory, or a country in its sphere of influence, that big power builds military bases in that country. Building military bases is big power's way to say to other powers something like this: back off, this is mine. If we analyze the fact that USA has military bases in 150 countries of the world, since there are 195 countries in the world, it turns out that USA has 150 countries in its sphere of influence. USA, as the biggest power, got the biggest piece of the cake. To be precise, USA got 76% of the cake for the world. The remaining 45 countries of the world are what's left of the world for other big powers to control, mainly Russia and China. According to Wikipedia, Russia has military bases in about 8 countries of the world and it plans to get more countries under its influence, for example, Venezuela. However, there is another problem in Syria which complicates the situation. Those are Turkey and Iran. The fact is that small power can become big power within time, and Turkey and Iran are becoming big powers. When small powers start getting stronger, they demand more than just crumbs. They want their own piece of the cake. So, that is what is going on. Turkey is becoming a great power, so it decided to invade northern Syria. Iran, on the other side, supports President Assad and wants to spread its influence on Syria. Iran, on the other side, supports President Assad and wants to spread its influence on Syria. So now, there are military boats from 4 military powers on Syrian ground. Those are USA, Russia, Turkey, and Iran. I think that all what is going on right now is that those 4 powers are fighting for a piece of cake. Let's analyze what each power wants. USA wants to remove other powers from Syria and to put another country in its sphere of influence. Russia wants to remove USA and Turkey from Syria and keep the whole country in its sphere of influence, while tolerating Iranian influence. Turkey wants to remove USA, Russia, and Iran from Syria and keep the whole country under Turkish influence, especially the north of the country. Iran wants to remove USA and Turkey from Syria and increase its influence in Syria while tolerating Russian influence. Syrian President Assad. The president wants to unite the country to remove USA and Turkey and keep the country under Russian and Iranian influence. So, unfortunately, a very complicated and dangerous cake-cutting game is going on in Syria. What will happen? Nobody can say. Either big powers will make a new deal about who gets what, or, in theory, World War III could start. I think that the most just solution would be if President Assad could liberate the whole country and start building a stable and prosperous country, the country Syria once was. However, wishes are one, and politics and possibilities are something else. Whatever happens, I sincerely hope that it will be the best solution for tortured Syrian people. I'm raising the question, why big powers just don't leave small powers alone? Don't they have enough of money and power? Do they really need more than they already have? Is more worth the suffering of millions of people? Are so-called casualties of war worthy of all of that? Is just one innocent dead child worthy of more money and more power? According to Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, about 560,000 people died since the war began in 2011. Have you heard this correctly? 560,000 people died because big powers want more money and more power, and they have never enough. Will they ever have enough? However, there is a perfect solution for Syria, and it's not going to be shown in media. That is Big Brother, Small Brother policy. All 4 powers could just sit at the table with President Assad and make a perfect deal with him which would stop the war at once. They could say, "We are here to truly help you like big brothers, without asking for anything in return. We will help you to become strong again, withdraw our forces and let you live in peace. From now on, we will always be there for you, truly, unconditionally, without asking for anything in return." Simple solution, isn't it? Simple solutions are usually the best solutions, and if big powers would want to behave like this, they could, and they would solve Syrian crisis very fast. Obviously, big powers suffer from greed and immorality. Greed is a disease, and if somebody gets infected, the patient cannot have ever enough money and power. So, no wonder why big powers cannot ever have enough. They are ill and desperately need urgent treatment. I sincerely hope that the Connected Show will help big powers get well. People have to understand that. They are just ill patients in terrible agony of endless greed for more and more and more money and power. It's a terrible disease. Do you agree? I sincerely hope the Syrian war will end as soon as possible on the best possible way for Syria and Syrian tortured people. I sincerely hope that the Connected Show will manage to influence positively people from all sides involved in the conflict so that the war will end as soon as possible. If that would happen, I have no words to describe how much I would be honored and happy. I hope that you will find the Connected Show valuable. Recommend me to others, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and become my patron. Help me build the show. Let's change the world together and let's connect.